It is a hearty and warm welcome to yet another edition of the program World of Business, a weekly guide in trending business news. We also delve into the latest developments on the stock markets and also herald unsung but thriving business entrepreneurs on this program. My name is Tafara Matura. In a recent statement, His Excellency the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, highlighted the need to intensify and encourage full usage of the ZiG currency, especially for domestic transactions. We'll be analyzing more on this in the second segment with our special guest, Dr. Langton Mabhanga, an economist all the way from Kadoma. We will also take a preview of the upcoming SADC summit in the last segment. We look at the exchange rates as of today. Exchange rates as of today were: the Zimbabwe gold to the USD interbank rate was at 13.73 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Great Britain pound interbank rate was at 17.56 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the euro interbank rate was at 14.85 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the South African rand interbank rate was at 1.32 ZiG. The Zimbabwe gold to the Botswana pula interbank rate was at 1.01 ZiG. We also give you the commodity prices on the global market. Commodity prices as of today were: gold per ounce traded at $2,376 after it went up by 0.37 percentage points. Silver per ounce traded at $31.11 after it went up by 0.17 percentage points. Copper per pound traded at $456.80 after it went down by 0.21 percentage points. Platinum per ounce traded at $989.55 after it went up by 0.06 percentage points. That's all we had for you in this very segment of the world of business. Do join us again in the second segment for a detailed discussion with our economist, Dr. Langton Mabhanga. Welcome back to the second segment of World of Business. As hinted earlier on, His Excellency Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, the President, has highlighted that Zimbabwe should intensify moves towards a single national currency for internal transactions, with foreign currency just used for international transactions and trade. And to help us dissect these and other issues in greater detail, I'm joined in the studio by our special guest, Dr. Langton Mabhanga. Doc, always a pleasure and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Zimbabwe, for having me.
A critical issue we want to look into today, Doc. Speaking during the commissioning of the new fruit juice processing factory in Mutare, His Excellency the President, Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, brought up the need to continue to reinforce the successes of the ZiG. And to date, looking at various measures that the Monetary Policy Committee addressed, how far have we gone with buttressing the effectiveness of the ZiG currency?
Thank you very much for a good question. True. Zimbabwe, for once, has cast a formidable process of instituting a robust, resilient currency, ZiG. For the first time, we now have a currency that is hedged by demonstrated value. For once, we now have a currency, Zimbabwe-born, originated currency that is hedged by asset value, be it the minerals, we have gold. You know that Zimbabwe is endowed by Mount Aya. currencies, rather minerals. And the currency that we have currently is withheld value, and more admirable is the fashion in which the monetary authority has rolled out the currency into the market in a very measured, calculated manner that makes it very difficult for currency vouchers to manipulate the currency. You would also know we constantly do research in the market. The kind of vibe that we're getting from the market now is that lots of consumers are saying, and we're putting this at about 67% of the consumers, are saying that they would rather keep the currency in plastic form. They're not too keen to withdraw cash on this currency. They are happier, they're more comfortable to use it in plastic form. They are attesting that in a long time, they are now in custody of a currency that is buying value. And mind you, in month 2, that's where we're at 67%. We are going to do further benchmarking in the coming month in August. It will be incredible to see where statistics will be at.
Right, now, Doc, looking at the fact that you do conduct these very market research, what monetary policy issues are needed to be addressed, looking at the lessons learned from the previous measures?
I'll probably first highlight the measures taken so far by the Monetary Authority. Yes. We always need to give credit where it should be placed. The demand creation exercised by government itself, where they have now enacted acceptance of 50-50 currencies, local and foreign, in remittance of taxes, is a statement, a huge statement of confidence that is so loud in the market. That demand creation is also lead creation, in that the market now is much more deliberate to the extent of accepting. The acceptance of the Zimzig is much broader and is continuing to expand. We also see that the mainstream retail chains continue with consistency to accept ZIG. That is the more reason why even consumers are getting more comfort to retaining ZIG in their plastic wallets, because it continues to do much more on the market.
Now, consistency is a key. I'm sure you'd agree with me, Doc, and we should strive to continue to build confidence when we talk of our ZIG currency. Now, what more measures need to be put in place, or rather to be tightened, and what new measures need to be improved as we grow?
Essentially, we need to continue to harness our mineral assets in a way that the reserve continues to grow. That is the only way that will guarantee retention of value in the market. We need to ensure that all the gold mined in the country lands at the correct destination, and that is the Treasury, the National Treasury. We have also done research. We have just completed research that looked at generating a smart architecture that can ensure a sustainable retention of gold mined by artisanal and small-scale miners that will enhance hedging of the new local currency. There is an opportunity in that space, and we will be sharing and unpacking that research with the various stakeholders on how we can leverage that sector to yield the much needed minerals to expand the reserves of minerals, to ensure that we attract more Zimzig in circulation that is bagged comfortably by a mineral reserve.
All right, as we highlighted earlier on as well, Doc, that the government has set a goal that Zimbabwe moves towards a single national currency for internal transactions with foreign currency just used for those international transactions and trade. How far have we gone now, and what more needs to be done to make this a success?
Like I alluded to earlier on, we do applaud the Monetary Authority for the fashioned manner, structured manner in which they have unpegged the Zimzig currency. It's going to be a balancing act. It's even the way the president made that statement, he defined the context as the local market. It's always going to be the reserve that's going to determine the Zimzig currency in circulation. Mind you, there's substantial gap that should be filled by the Zimzig. When we started, we probably had between 20 and 30% of local currency circulating in the market. That means we have between 60 and 70% void to fill with the Zimzig. With a growing economy, it remains an elastic goal to fill. That goal can only be attained through production. And this is the more reason why we need to harness more minerals. We need to produce more in the agricultural sector. We are envying the new program that the president is unpacking, the irrigation. When you hear the president talking about irrigation, you almost see an irrigation industry standing on its own to generate an economy that was almost not there. Those are the significant steps and mechanisms that we must embed, we must entrench in the economy. Right. So we're talking about production on the mining side, we're talking about production in the agricultural side, almost a new income stream coming, revenue stream coming on the irrigation side. Itself also packaged as a climate adaptation strategy and also import substitution strategy, double-edged. We also have the tourism coming up. It is charging, where we are seeing new levels of revenue performance in the tourism sector. Those strategies put together will lead to increased performance of the Zimzig in terms of volume in the local currency.
Right. Earlier on, you did mention that in terms of acceptance of the ZiG currency, we are on a growth trajectory. But now, when ZiG was first introduced, doc, we noted some manufacturers were still charging exclusively in the USD for most of their orders. What has been done to date to try and motivate the continuous use of our ZiG currency?
Like what I alluded to, Zimbabwe took the first step that steered the market. It had an inherent effect of shaking the market. If there is any pocket that didn't want to take ZiG, it only takes wisdom to accept the ZiG, because there is accommodation that you can pay 50% of your taxes in the local currency. It's common cause. So that alone has stimulated great interest and appetite for the ZiG currency. Yes.
All right. Lastly, Doc, the Reserve Bank's Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU, has also gone after the big-time dealers and has frozen suspicious bank accounts. What type of accounts when we were being frozen, and what has this had an effect to date?
I'll probably give you a much more comprehensive response to that point. We have always asserted and challenged the monetary authority that year in, year out, banks are accumulating good, handsome, vast profits. And a component of those profits are in local currency. It's best practice worldwide that we get financial services players plowing back some of the profits into stimulating small to medium scale enterprises to grow to the next level. The volume of SMEs economy in Zimbabwe needs to be frog jumped to becoming active industries. And that can only be accomplished by sectors, financial services sectors, that have huge volumes of local currency plowing into the SME sector. The quantum of industries in Zimbabwe does not relate to the ominous quantum of SMEs. We now need to front load some of the SMEs graduating into industries. The gap in between is deliberate and structured national effort in funding SMEs. That will lead to directing local currency to a good cause. What causes hot money when you leave your local currency to chase foreign currency in a way that stimulates inflation? Your local currency becomes hot money. So the only way to curb what money is to direct your local currency to good cause. And the good cause, that is internationally proven, is stimulating growth in your SMEs.
All right. Unfortunately, Doc, I have to hold you right there due to time. But that brings us to the end of the second segment of the program, World of Business. Join us in the final segment where we round up the discussion. But for now, we take a short break. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the World of Business, where we are going to take a quick preview of the upcoming SADC Summit. And I'm still joined in the studio by Dr. Langton Mabhanga, an economist. Doc, welcome back to the last segment of the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, as we continue the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap 2015 to 2063 is premised on the conviction that regional integration will promote industrialization. What issues should this very summit measure on this end?
Thank you very much for that question. The SADC Industrialization Week is going to be a busy one. I think in terms of content, there's going to be a lot to talk about around the industrialization strategy. Like you rightfully highlighted, running from 2015 to 2063. One of the things that should happen in those conversations is taking stock on the journey this far. And secondly, it is now happening at a time when the African continental free trade area is fully active. And SADC is heavily challenged to act collectively as a bloc in building comparative advantages that can stand tall in the African continental free trade area. Unemployment is a huge challenge in the entire regional bloc, and SADC has to act collectively and demonstrate that they can respond to that growing challenge. Fortunately, SADC holds about 50% of gold that is claimed on the entire continent. SADC claims upward of 90% of the platinum that the entire globe boasts of. SADC holds more than 90% of chromium claimed by the entire globe. And the critical conversations would be how to leverage all these endowments to the best advantage of competing and value adding in the African continental free trade area. Furthermore, climate is ravaging the entire world, and SADC will also need to reflect on climate adaptation strategies in agriculture, food, natural resources. That's going to be quite key. And of course, health issues are going to be underlying, cross-cutting in all those conversations during the industrialization week.
All right, Doc, let's look at some of those milestones by the bloc itself. What milestones by the region have been taken so far to promote industrialization and innovation in the region?
You would want to know that one of the things that has happened in SADC is that the trading and sharing of primary goods has significantly come down, but remains less than the trade in manufactured goods. That is an achievement and also a challenge that the SADC Industrialization Week needs to engage in. The original thinking of SADC was to ensure more intra-regional trade versus the extra-regional trade. But currently, there is much more extra-regional trade happening, more than the intra-regional trade. That difficult conversation must happen within the industrialization week.
Just to bring the story back home as well, Doc, how can we accelerate that growth momentum and enhance the competitive advantage of the economies of this very region?
I think Zimbabwe will be singing a high tone in the SADC industrialization week. Mind you, Zimbabwe has got the fastest growth rate of the economy in the SADC region. Zimbabwe has got, I think, the biggest innovation strategy in the SADC region. Zimbabwe has got the biggest pool of climate adaptation strategies in agriculture. Zimbabwe is very active in renewable energy. So, in the whole conversation on how to proceed as a regional bloc, Zimbabwe will need to sing the highest pitch in the room. There is a lot to take from Zimbabwe. The science and skills conversation, innovation conversations, a lot will be taken from Zimbabwe, and I'm sure the delegates will be looking forward a lot, especially to the public lecture that the president will be delivering on the sidelines of the summit.
All right, the SADC Industrialization Week, Doc, is also a precursor to the 44th SADC Summit, which will run from the 28th of July to the 2nd of August, right here in our nation, Zimbabwe. Now let's look at the opportunity side. How can Zimbabwe make use of this opportunity to attract any available trade opportunities?
I think the biggest opportunity that we have is to go into the industrialization week and liquidate all the comparative advantages that we've accumulated in Zimbabwe, that I've alluded to, into the policy framework of SADC, such that when the SADC heads of states sit, they must then reduce all those and append their signatures into policies. The advantage of that is when what we are doing is reduced into policy frameworks. Mind you, SADC system allows that to be pushed into the country parliaments, into legislation, into the budgets. If we are able to do that, it means that we would have done a lot of demand creation for our science and innovation, would have done a lot of demand creation for our skills and innovations. There is a lot that we can push through into SADC.
All right. Lastly, Doctor, we are just a few days away from the summit. From your assessment in terms of preparedness, where are we as a nation?
I think in terms of readiness for SADC, we're there. We're waiting for the time. If you look, I'm sure by now, the very institutions, the various ministries, I'm sure they've got their bags pegged for the SADC. They've got their presentation ready for SADC. Industry should be ready now to sell, to showcase our capacities to the SADC colleagues. We should be ready. In terms of hospitality, look, we are there. We are Zimbabwe comes complete with hospitality. I'm sure we're ready, and we hope that we will have a good number of delegates staying behind to enjoy the warm Zimbabwean hospitality, especially the Victoria Falls, the Eastern Highlands, the Great Zimbabwe, in Masvingo, the Kariba Dam. We have a lot to showcase, and I'm sure Zimbabwe is ready.
Awesome. That leads me to thank you very much, Dr. Langton Mabhanga, for joining me in this very edition of the program.
Thank you very much, Tafa. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for having me.
Awesome. That's it for this for week's edition of the program World of Business. Do join us again in next week, same place, same time. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.